Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm Roberto Mancone from Deutsche Bank. As you can see from the title, the Global Head of Disruptive Technology and Solutions in Deutsche Bank. Francesco?
And good morning, everyone, from my side as well. I'm Francesco Brenna from IBM. I lead our AI practice across Europe in IBM, which essentially means that together with my team, I work with clients like Roberto in implementing AI type of solutions.
And you call me a client, we call partners more than clients.
Yeah, partners, of course.
I mean, just one thing about the title. I mean, the title probably is kind of unusual in the banking industry, right? To have somebody disruptive inside the bank sounds maybe a little bit unusual, but deliberately we decided within the bank to have this title just to understand all those technologies such as AI and trying to see if we can bring it in the bank and change the way we do business in a normal way. Maybe we'll try to alternate a little bit during the presentation, so hopefully we'll give you enough insight. Just a quick goal, what do we intend to show you in this particular presentation today? There's a lot of noise, a lot of buzz about artificial intelligence, and the way we want to show it, how artificial intelligence can attack also the advisory model. So not only the replacement of the mundane activities, but how can create augmentation of the capability of the advisors in the bank. The banks are embracing AI now. It's no longer time to think, right? I think we have spent a lot of time and years in design thinking. I think it's time to stop thinking and start to act and implement. And we will show you how some of the solutions are real. There was an interesting article in May 2017 by the economies showing some of the applications some of the banks, known or unknown, are developing recently. And as you can see, there are disparate activities. It can be in compliance, can be in trade financing, it can be in KYC features, can be in avoidance of frauds. Any bank has its own different user case. But the goal is, of course, that the way we have done business and banking until now is no longer sustainable. We need to find a way to have a situation which is much more efficient and productive, and we believe that the AI can help us to go in that direction.
Sure. So Roberto mentioned already one thing which I believe is really the key principle of all the work that we're doing with AI, especially in the advisory space. And that's really that we are basically looking at it as a way to augment or basically support and empower people rather than displacing jobs. We don't believe, I personally strongly don't believe that the technology is yet there where we can really displace or replace financial advisors. So the way we're looking at this, we call it augmented intelligence, is that for empowering your advisor, you actually need two main things. Number one, it is about digitizing your knowledge, which is not only probably the most important, but yet unused asset that every bank has, but is also probably the way to ensure to create this trusted relationship between the bank and the client. And when we talk about digitizing knowledge, it's not only about the data, it's actually the insights that you have in the data, your intellectual capital, which is spread all over the system, all over a series of data sources, but also in the head of your experts, in the head of your advisors. So we're looking a way at extracting this knowledge and digitizing in a way that it can be used by advisors. And obviously, if you want to do something like that, you have to go for AI system which can understand this type of data, they can reason over it, and most importantly, they can learn by working and interacting with experts. But that's not enough. The second thing you need to look at is really how to use this knowledge to augmenting the experience of your advisors. We're really looking at taking this knowledge and making it available very quickly and in a very simple way to the advisor so that they can use it to have the right narrative, the right evidences, to have a much more personalized, but yet also productive advisories. And I believe there is probably no better way to explain what this is all about than probably looking at what is called the Kasparov law, which Gary Kasparov explained pretty well in his latest book called Deep Thinking, which it looked at basically some results out of a chess tournament done a couple of years ago called the freestyle chess, where humans and machines all play together. And the fascinating results were not only that the machine and the human together, they were able to beat even the smartest machine, But the most remarkable, I believe, findings out of that was that average humans plus machine plus strong processes are actually stronger than even, in that case, a grandmaster or strong humans with machine but weak processes. And I think this is really what it's all about. When I look at the job you are doing, that you will have to do in implementing AI, is really looking at the processes. So building the interface between the machines, regardless of what technology you're going to use for the machines, but it's really about the interface between the machines and the human, which is not only the user experience, but is also the way you train it and the way you provide clarity and transparency to the people who are going to use this machine about who has trained the machine, how it has been trained, and what data has been used. So that's very, very fundamental. So by digitizing the knowledge and augmenting the experience, what we really want to show you today is how we can move the advisors, the work that the advisors do today, toward a much more scalable on one side, but also more personalized and consistent advice. So really looking at how we can look at these advisors which are overwhelmed by all the data and insight which they have into advisors which can very quickly get the relevant insights and actionable insights which they can use to advise their clients. So in order to do so, before we continue into what we're doing at Deutsche Bank, I just wanted to show you one example which I believe make this augmentation, or I hope it will make this augmented intelligence more clear to you. What you're going to see is a real system which we built for a bank in the US. And it's basically looking at one of the first early step in advisor, which is onboarding the client. And as probably many of you will know, the onboarding of a client with all the due diligence related to that is a very expensive, very intensive type of process, which requires a lot of research and manual search. So what you're going to see on this video are two analysts, one on the left and one on the right side of the screen. The analyst on the left side is doing the onboarding process without the help of any AI system, so the old way of doing onboarding. And the analyst on the right-hand side is using a system which has been built with IBM Watson. One thing which I wanted to share is that it has been blinded for confidentiality. So the reason why some of the screens are obfuscated is because this is a real system with real data. So on the left you see the timing down there. Left you see the analyst starting the onboarding by downloading some data. The analyst on the right-hand side has opened up the system powered by Watson, has already all the data. It already sees immediately that the company which is trying to onboarding is actually out of business. The guy over here is still looking in Google and still typing trying to get into the Illinois corporate registry to actually get the data from that client. You can see on the right-hand side that the analyst has already all the data he needs about the company, obviously obfuscated, and can really go much quicker into the analysis. You can see that based on some Google pictures, the company is out of business, seems to be closed. You can look at the negative news. It seems that there is nothing bad about that particular client. This client over here, the analyst over here is still on the corporate registry. Then the analyst on the other side is now generating a KYC report. So in 2 minutes, a bit more than 2 minutes, it's already generated a KYC report on that particular company. However, the system tells you there are 2 stakeholders associated with that company which need to go through the onboarding as well. So you can immediately start looking at these 2 main shareholders. You look at some of the negative media research. You can filter by using some of the machine learning algorithm that we implemented. You can just get the list of the most relevant news, open up the news, it sees some of the sanctions already outlined by the system. So it's really using the system to actually make this process much more efficient, much more quick. And these guys over here are still kind of lost in Google, try to find out what's going on with this person. You can see that we are almost at 5 minutes. And that analyst can now click on the generate KYC report, has got the KYC report done in a bit more than 5 minutes. And the person over here is still on Google, still looking actually at the at the company itself, where it is located, looking at the picture like we did previously on the system, it sees that the business seems closed, so it's still in this old manual research type of process. And what we believe, what this is all about is really to try to, KYC is pretty much about finding the needle in the haystack, because it really tries to find evidences in a huge amount of data. And personally, I don't believe that, or I believe that finding a needle in the haystack is still a very computational, difficult task. However, I believe the AI can support you in reducing significantly the haystack and really letting the analyst or the advisor in that case with really the last piece of the analysis where really the human is still going to be relevant. We can see that at the end, task completed, 13 minutes versus 5 minutes. So that's the kind of efficiency that you can think about when implementing an AI system. So moving maybe back to Deutsche Bank, Roberto, if you can start looking at some of the work that we do.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a different chart. You were showing how basically you're augmenting the capacity of usage of data. In this chart, it's more or less the same, but from a different perspective, starting from the data, right? As you can see, if you go in the lower corner, lower left corner, I mean, this is the typical data that banks or financial institutions normally deal with, which is transactional data, anaggraphic data, the data about our clients. But the reality today that we move more and more and more in the big data. And big data, as you all know, of course, means not only the transactional, but it means also behavior of the clients, means video, pictures, any other element of data. So can we really think that human being can manage this huge amount of different data and different shape and form coming from different kind of sources in an automated, simple way, or do we need to ask for some assistance to artificial intelligence in order to extract the proper information? So as you can see, if you move towards the right and top corner, then of course more and more you move towards the complexity of data and different kind of sources and different kind of quality, inevitably you need also assistance from AI. We are working on different aspects. We're working in Augment Advisory. We are working on the artificial intelligence using the Salesforce augmented reality, and I will focus on some of the topics. We don't need to spend so much time on this, but I mean in the past, at least especially in the banking, and I know here in a different kind of environment and audience, but we have spent decades, as you can see, trying to fix the data, collate and put them all together under the same kind of source. And now that we have probably spent enough time to put them all together, then the problem is that what do we do with it? Can we really handle all the data in a proper manner, and can artificial intelligence help us to do that? The point is that, at least at Deutsche Bank, no matter how we intend to use it, no matter how you intend to use it, I think you can follow 3 different categories, different groups, right? You can have artificial intelligence in order to engage the client directly, so you can create a direct client experience if that's the route that you want to follow. But if that is not the case, because you have a business model that focuses on advisory, then you can use AI in order to empower the advisor. So you don't need to engage directly with the client. Well, ultimately, you can also do that in order to create efficiency similar to the process, the KYC that Francesco was just mentioning before. So when did we start at Deutsche Bank? And we started almost 2 years ago. It was June 2015, when we started thinking of it. Can we onboard, at this point, artificial intelligence inside the bank? We made all the assessment, the maturity, the capability. We chose the advisors. We chose also the partners. And we decided to start developing that. And then 2017, we are in the implementation phase. So it's a long journey, if you want, maybe too long, but it was necessary in order to make sure that all the architecture, all the artificial intelligence cases and the proper vendors were properly selected. So now what are we doing in 2017? Back to the concept, I said the 3 possible categories. Now we are developing 3 different kind of use cases. One is for advisories, the use case number 1. So it's can we engage with the client in order to help them to have the assessment of their possible financial needs. So this is a direct engagement using artificial intelligence, using the data in order to try to facilitate the engagement of clients in order to get the final score. The second one is an internal service line. We receive a lot of requests from our sales force in order to respond to their clients, so it's a matter of efficiency. We have hundreds of thousands of requests from the front end to the back end in order to provide answers back to the clients in the front end. So if 100,000 of this information back and forth, many of these can be treated in an efficient manner, we believe AI can help us with that. The third case is different. It's an operational risk management. All the banks or fintechs or any kind of entity receives complaint constantly, right? But you need to handle those complaints. And complaints means operational risk, loss of clients, potential defection, potential user cases that will create abandonment by your clients. So these are the three cases: advisory, efficiency, and operational risk management. In this case, we envision a direct engagement. Therefore, we utilize also a chat capability between the client and the artificial intelligence, in this case, Watson. In the efficiency case that I mentioned, instead of having all the questions handled from the front end through the back end, through the back office, 70 or 80% of these questions can be handled automatically, and the answers can be provided automatically to advisors, which then in turn passes them to the clients. So the middle project, if you want, 80% is handled automatically instead of going through the people in the back office. And the complaint management is the same logic. It doesn't really matter how you receive the request. Fortunately, unfortunately, in this modern world, still a lot of complaints happen via letter, via fax, via script, rarely via voice. And therefore, as long as you have any kind of script, any kind of unstructured data, you can transform, you can analyze, and you can treat it as artificial intelligence. Based on your experience, Francesco, these are the three user cases we've seen. Have you seen different kind of cases also?
No, I think the domains, the areas are pretty much the ones that we are seeing, pretty much all over the place in banking. Just one comment or one thing which I will add to your list is that on the efficiency side, so the third case where Deutsche Bank is looking at the complaint management for the time being, I think there is a lot of focus and a lot of traction around the compliance space. So how to improve process like regulatory change management, which again is a very knowledge-intensive process, KYC as a whole, trade surveillance, AML. So there is a lot of traction and a lot of adoption in the compliance space for sure.
Yeah, for sure, that's another point. Giving you also an example of what we have done, what we're doing. And so what you're going to see now is a recorded test that we have done in a particular user case. We decided to focus on our commercial clients. We used 40 clients which are listed in a stock exchange here in the UK. And then we decided to simulate as if these were our clients. We can show you because these are public data, obviously, in this case, so we don't need to obscure them. So we decided what you will see today is an environment where the client engages directly with Watson and asks questions in order to receive direct advisory. And then you will see what are the three main capabilities that we try to extract. On the other hand, you will see also what the advisor sees after that conversation takes place. So I will try to comment voice over, maybe a couple of information on what do we do beside the 40 clients, how many data we collect.
I think, yeah, so basically for the system you're going to show, for those clients, we basically ingested, in this case, into IBM Watson, all of their websites. We ingested all of their annual report over the last 3 years, primarily the qualitative part of the annual report. We've ingested all the financial data. We'll look at roughly 300,000 news sources to really, see whether there was any relevant insights about that particular client. And then we also, on top of that, we train Watson on 4 main financial domains. One was trade finance, you will see in the demo. Trade finance, hedging, financing, and investment. Those were the 4 kind of financial domains that Watson has been trained on in order to A, support the client, and B, also help the advisor later on.
Right, so this video basically is a short, simple example of what we have done. So there is a client that really exists. His name is Mark Watson, which decides at this point to engage directly with artificial intelligence or with Watson services, starting to ask questions. So wherever you see the logo, that's the answer. So Watson recognizes automatically the name of the client because from the company has all the information available. It immediately engages in a conversation, providing on the right side all the necessary information advices related to his business, because the client works for a specific company. So you can see that whatever the client types on the bottom, it receives immediately on the right side all the information about his business, his competitors, his suppliers related to that specific topic. This is the extraction of data, the 300,000 feeds that Francesco was mentioning, plus all the annual reports. So any kind of engagement automatically is translated into information. Then we decide to check the semantics. So the client says, I have a new business partner. I'm concerned about currency volatility. That doesn't mean anything. It's very vague. But because we have trained, currency volatility means probably hedging. The system detects that in the annual report there was an acquisition of partnership in Netherlands and Italy, the company UK. Therefore, most likely the client is interested in the pounds versus euro. On the right side here, you see the visual of the advisor. So the advisor on the right side sees all the conversation that took place. This is a few seconds, but it was a 15 minutes conversation between the client and the Watson. So on the right side, he receives, or he or she, automatically a recap of the conversation, recap of the most important topics. And here on top is the best next action, right? So the Watson says why you should talk to the client about this topic, about trade finance. Not only I tell you what kind of level of probability of success you have, but by clicking, it gives you also the evidence. So the instruction, next best action, evidence of why you should talk about these particular topics. And then any kind that the advisor wants to investigate even further, preparing his or her meeting with the clients, then has sufficient evidence to be totally empowered and with an augmented capacity of advisory in order to touch the right topics. Ultimately also, we provide all the information related to competitors, suppliers, and different kind of clients so that the augmented capacity is ingested. Is this sufficient? Probably not, but you can imagine this was done in 8 weeks. So you can imagine if you train properly an entire data set, the empowerment of data in Notion goes beyond the 300,000 feeds. And to be honest with you, imagine that we as a human being are totally capable to give the right answer, the right time, the right question. Being constantly updated on a daily basis on hundreds of thousands of information is human impossible, right? That's why we believe that this is something that we need to rely on.
If I may add just one thing, Roberto. One of the things Roberto showed was this recommendation, this next best action with all the evidences. I think this is really where, also going back to my previous slide where I said digitalization of knowledge, that's really what it's all about. I think in this case, forget about the recommendation which the system gives you. I mean, there have been next best action system available for many, many years. I think the real value is this evidences, the narrative that the system gives you or give an advisor to have a much more evidence-based discussion with the client. And I believe, if I think about the previous presentation, I think there was a quote saying that only 20% of the customers believe that the financial advisor receive is unbiased. I believe that through this kind of system, by providing this narrative, these evidences, it's not going to solve entirely the problem, but it's definitely going to decrease for sure the number of people who would think that financial advice is biased.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus, it's audible, attractable, so you can imagine all the benefits with that. So basically, what have we learned in the last year and a half of exercising artificial intelligence? For sure, we need to set the tone at the top. You need to have inside any institution you work for the sponsorship from the top management in order to invest in something like this. You need to organize also your infrastructure, your governance. Certainly, it's not easy. It's not a plug-and-play solution, but you need to identify clearly what are the proof of concept, what are the user cases, what are the benefits that you want to focus for. Is it engagement with the clients, as I mentioned before? Is it efficiency case? Is it reduction of operational risk management? Once you have decided exactly in which category you want to invest, then of course you start deploying properly the proof of concept and subsequently also the full deployment of the activities. And then the rest, I guess.
Yeah, I think what the last two, I think just very briefly, one of the things which is very, very important is the fact that building those kind of systems requires a completely new way of doing IT project. We are all used to having, even in the agile mode, having business people writing specs, IT guys developing based on that specs and then going back to the business to test it, into an area where you have business people training directly the system. And that is not only a new way of working, but it also requires time and commitment from the business people to actually spend that time, spend that effort on training those systems. Because without this effort, this commitment, there will be no AI, to be quite frank. And the last thing is about building this AI capability within your firms. I'm personally a believer that AI is going to be the new IT. I really believe that in the next 10 to 15 years, we will see big corporations building large AI department to actually build those kind of systems. So you need to be prepared. You need to start building those capabilities, because one of my last comment on that will be that there is really a world of talent out there. That's relevant for us as IBM or any other kind of consulting organization. Is also true for banks like Deutsche Bank. If you want to get these people, you need to start now, because there is a world of talent out there.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, just to complete then, I mean, it's true what you said. I mean, maybe 10 to 15 years, the bank will be completely different. So from my point of view, it will take definitely faster than that. What we have seen in the last 2 or 3 years is something you haven't seen in the last decade, to be honest with you. So the speed and acceleration is really something you haven't seen before. Technology is helping, capability of handling data in a fast way is fine. And also, honestly, the acceptance of the concept of artificial intelligence. Many of you right now are using exactly the phones, and you know that there is an AI component in your phone, right? Even if you search for the pictures later on, you're looking for faces, automatically will give you faces. Well, guess what? There are already now fintechs out there that have been bought, by the way, by another bank, which based on the characteristics of the pictures you take, identifies maybe your needs are different. If you take pictures always in your neighborhood, and all of a sudden you're taking pictures of a different neighbor, maybe you're looking for a house. That information goes to the bank knows and sends you the proposal for mortgage before you even know. So this is a huge change that is part of our way of living, and that's why I believe that the combination will be faster. So I said before, it's time to stop, to design thinking and start to implement. You think we are implementing as a bank, or are we still slow?
I think we are implementing, or you are implementing, not at the pace I would expect to, but I've seen really a shift in the last 18 months from doing POCs into real implementation. And I believe that in the next 2 to 3 years, we will see a big adoption of AI across pretty much every line of business in banking, especially in the 3 areas that Roberto took us through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you.